Hey everyone, my name is Denny, and I'm someone who has been through the protracted withdrawal experience with Klonopin, and I think that it is something that is just still misunderstood. And I was hoping that I could just take a little bit of time here to try to help and help caregivers and people that are going through this to understand a little better. Last week, I had the opportunity to speak in my church, and I had the opportunity to speak about kind of what me and my wife and my family have been through, particularly the last few years. And it was really helpful. It was helpful for me, but it was helpful, I think, for the people at our church and people that wanted to understand a little more what happens when you go through this, that it is more of a brain injury than it is really a mental health crisis. Even though it does create a mental health crisis, it really is a brain injury. And over time, I've learned a little bit about this, enough to, I think explain it in a way that's coherent. So I want to take just a few moments. Hopefully, this will be helpful in understanding what's going on with you or your loved one. First thing, though, that's important is kind of a little bit my story. In 2018, I had been on Klonopin for 7 years. And at that point, I had a daughter, my daughter was born, and I was like, I can't feel anything anymore. So I went off it. Now I talked to a psychiatrist, but I was told to go off it way too quickly for how long I had been on it. So I went off in just a period of 3 months. And my head swelled up. This whole area in my head about was about a half an inch swollen with, I felt like fluid, and I couldn't sleep. I couldn't do anything really. And it was from the time that I started having symptoms to the time that I was able to function again. It was probably about 8 months. But even during that time, even after, I felt horrible. I was able to go back to work, and slowly over time, I was able to keep adding more and more. So I was able to go back to work, then I was able to go back to work, plus go running. Then I was able to do that, plus go to grad school, plus just do more and more. And by year four, I was working full time as a teacher. I was working part time as a youth pastor at my church. I was also mentoring a student, another kid through ministry in our city. I was doing grad school, and then we had two children. I was married, so I had a really full life, and I was really handling it really well. But in 2023, I started a new job. We bought a new house. We renovated a house. We had another baby. Right before that, things just really like the stress, I just couldn't handle it. And I just kept noticing like I was getting these more and more symptoms over time. I didn't really know what to do about it. I was sweating more. I was feeling stressed more often. I was noticing that my body really wasn't coming down anymore. And by last summer, I crashed, and it was worse than it was actually in the queue. Like I felt as bad as I think anyone could ever feel. I was sweating all the time. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't think. I was having derealization. I was terrified. I was angry. I was unable to really regulate it all. And the way things have worked over time has been kind of a slow progression upwards. I've made this graph. I've been keeping this graph for last year of my progress, and it's really on a scale of 1 to 10. It's a little bit skewed because um, I'm like right now I'm giving myself some ones, but I'm way better than I was a year ago, even though it goes from 10 to 1, because the 10 last year was really like a 10,000. I just didn't have any numbers for it. But hopefully this will give maybe a little bit of encouragement for anyone that's going through this right now, whether it's a setback or whether it is a acute withdrawal. But this is what it looks like, and you can see this was about a year ago. Days were just horrible. I was having maybe a week here where I was able to do a little more, but then it would shoot back up. And then it would drop, and then it would shoot back up, drop, shoot back up. And then it just kept happening over and over again. But what you notice over time is that the highs were getting lower. I mean, the highs weren't as bad as far as the symptoms, and then as things were getting better, the lows were getting lower as far as lower numbers. And then over time, things have just kept getting better and better, even though there's been spikes here and there. And my body still kind of is symptomatic. They can see over time that it has gotten better. And not everyone heals that way. Some people just don't have any relief for a year or 2 years, and then they get better. Some people just kind of slowly get better. The first time I went through this, it was just really like this. It was slow progress over a long period of time. I didn't know a setback was possible. My wife and I just really didn't know that. We hadn't probably done enough research. We kind of just jumped back into life, and really overtaxed my nervous system way beyond my capacity, and it threw it back into a setback. So that's kind of my story. If you're in a setback, it will get better. It just takes time. Um, if you're acute, it will get better. It just takes time. Well, I'm talking a little bit about that. I think it was it seemed like the feedback was helpful last week when I spoke to our church, was just kind of what happens to our brain, because it's a hard thing to understand. It's really like a nebulous idea of like my nervous system's injured. What does that mean? So the best I understand is that in our brain we have GABA receptors, and GABA, which is a neurotransmitter, and what it's responsible for is it's responsible for calming our brains down. It kind of functions as like a brake on a nervous system. So if you're driving a car and you're about to get in a car accident, and your heart's beating really fast and you're really stressed, and within 10 seconds you kind of notice that your body starts coming down. That's GABA that is working to put a brake on your system. Or when you're really angry, you feel that like that shoot of adrenaline of like, oh, just as it's like shooting around your body, and then you kind of feel it come back down. That's a GABA bringing your body down. And what Klonopin, Xanax, Ativan does, what does it does? It binds to part of your brain. When it binds to part of your brain, it artificially releases too much GABA. So the GABA is just kind of flooded, and the GABA makes you feel relaxed and makes you feel calm, makes your muscles relax. But because it's artificially doing that, when you take it away too fast, or when you take it away at all, your brain doesn't really know how to work anymore. It just doesn't know how to function as far as put that brake on. Now, if you do it slowly over a period of time, your brain can adjust easier. But many people like me, I went off it too fast, and other people have gone off it cold turkey, which is can be really horrible. And your brain just doesn't have the capacity to work with GABA anymore. So you're living without any breaks. And this is really important for people that are caregivers to understand, because they might wonder, like, why is my loved one angry all the time? Why can't they relax? Why are they walking around and moving all the time? Why is just everything feel so big? And it's because they don't have no breaks. There's no cushion against life. It's like you're living life and just too intense. And over time, your brain starts to adjust to what's going on. So over time, the receptors will start working again. They'll be able to kind of sense things easier. You'll be able to start having GABA work. And you'll kind of notice over time, you'll be able to handle a little bit more and a little bit more. And that's just the GABA that's functioning better in your brain again. But that's what's going on. So when someone, either you or your loved one, just cannot calm down, you can't stop being angry, or you're just freaking out and everything just feels terrifying, it's because your brain has actually been injured, and the GABA just isn't working. There's no brake. So it's like a runaway train, and it is just going full speed, and there's no stopping it. And it is just, you just gotta wait until things start to calm down a little bit. When they do, though, which they will, you will start to slowly feel a little better. And finally, after a year, I've had to learn my lesson, what I would do last time. In that chart that I showed, you can kind of see like it was like a little better, and then there'd be a huge spike, because when I felt a little better, I would just jump back into life, and then I couldn't handle it, and then I would have a spike again. So now I'm trying to, the word I always use is titrate. I'm trying to just like go up a little, push a little bit more and more and more, keep testing, then push a little more. For example, like instead of going running rate again, like I started walking a mile, and I started walking 2 miles and 3 miles. And then if it's too much, I kind of back off and go back to 2 miles until I go back up 3 miles. And instead of just going back to work full time, I'm now teaching online classes. And if that feels good, so I'm gonna start subbing. If that feels good, I'll eventually go back to teaching full time, which I'm hoping will happen sooner rather than later. Um, but you have to just be careful and just and constantly test how much your body can handle until it is healed. So that's my best understanding what happens. Again, it's a situation in your brain. The GABA just is not working, so there's no breaks. So it causes all kinds of crazy symptoms, but does get better. Now, if you have questions about this, please put in the comments. If you're a loved one and you just don't get it, you can ask questions, and I'd be happy to respond. Or if you're like, hey, you got the science wrong, well, then tell me, and hopefully that will help someone maybe understand a little better. But again, this is just something I thought I could do because of the feedback last week in our community. And it just seems like the more people can understand what's going on, the less stigmatized this will be, and the easier people that are going through it will have. Um, as far as going through this, like it's already a horrific, painful thing. And if people around them can understand better and be more compassionate, then it's win-win, I think. So thanks so much.